Welcome, everybody, to the Neuro Masters Show, where we uncover the transformative powers of the mind. I'm Reg Malhotra, your host, and I'm here to guide you with practical tools and inspiring stories grounded in neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis. Now, whether you're a high achiever feeling stuck or a growth seeker looking to overcome setbacks, join us each week to break through barriers and achieve profound personal and professional growth. So let's dive in and unlock your potential.
Hello, and welcome back to the Neuro Masters Podcast. Today, we are talking about a silent struggle that is affecting more people than ever before, and that's loneliness. Even successful, social, and high performing people often feel isolated, misunderstood, even emotionally disconnected. And so today, Reg Malhotra is here to break down the real root of loneliness and what we can do to heal from the inside out. Reg, thank you for being here today.
Great to be here and a great topic to be talking about. Yes.
Now, we've seen statistics. You can look at any piece of research. There's a lot of research out there now. I'm seeing things like 1 in 3 adults experience some form of loneliness, and 1 in 6 experience an extreme form of loneliness. So it's more common than ever before, despite the fact that we are, technologically speaking, more connected than ever before. Can you talk about what's going on here?
Yeah, those are staggering numbers. Like you said, 1 in 6 can end up experiencing severe loneliness, and 1 in 3, and it's increasing, experience some level of loneliness. So, in order to break this down, let me just delve into the topic of what being lonely really means. And this is a term we hear growing up. It's used in many different contexts. We see it through movies. Um, Initially, lonely appears to be someone who has no company, right? No company. But what we want to clarify here is you can have company and feel extremely lonely. I think that's the silent killer. So, one form of loneliness is simply companionship, not having enough companionship, and social isolation. That can happen for more than one reason, where there's not enough people. And as we know that human beings are social creatures, it's part of our survival mechanism, if you will, and thriving mechanism. So one can get lonely as a result of not having people to communicate with, people to share activities with, and in general having company to associate with. Um, and then the other form of loneliness, like I said, when you have company, say you work somewhere where there's a lot of people there, and you meet them every day, you see them every day, but because of the nature of communication at the workplace, um, what is allowed, what's not allowed, how much a person feels heard and understood, and more importantly, how much a person is able to express their true self, which is not always easy to do at a workplace. A person can go to work every day and then continually feel lonely, right? It's okay to say hi and hello and have that odd joke around the water cooler, but for someone to pay interest to you, be curious about you, have you feel heard and understood, are really the things that make you not feel lonely. One can also feel lonely within a family structure due to past events. So you may have a family, but you may not have the opportunity to express what you're truly feeling. There could be judgments, all sorts of things. One can even feel lonely inside of a marriage,
Hmm.
because if there is not clear communication, there is not um, lack of judgment, there is the inability to speak your truth. And I think a successful marriage is based on honesty. And if there is a lack of honesty, which I believe a lot of marriages do have a lack of honesty, I've worked with a lot of people, thousands of people, and whenever I ask how vulnerable are you able to be in a relationship, it's not been that strong, the response, for all sorts of reasons. So as you can see here, loneliness can be experienced in so many forms, and nowadays with the our ability to watch other people's lives, whether it's on social media, whether it's through other means, it can give a false feeling that we have somebody. But at the end of the day, loneliness is not solved by seeing other people's lives or by chatting with them. That can help, but I think the true nature of loneliness is loneliness inside.
You talk about maybe two types of loneliness, or maybe the difference between being physically alone and experiencing loneliness. And as you say, those are completely different things. You can be physically alone and not feel lonely. And the
Mhm.
reverse is true. You can be in a crowd of people, you can be at a party and feel like the loneliest person in the world. A lot of that is emotional loneliness. We also know that it has a lot of potentially devastating consequences. Prolonged loneliness can lead to things like increased heart disease, um, increased risk of stroke, heart attack, suicide, a lot of devastating consequences. What are the signs of emotional loneliness that maybe people that are listening, maybe they're experiencing it and it's getting overlooked?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about, I'll get to that point. I want to talk a little bit about why people could be allowing loneliness
Mm.
consciously and unconsciously. And it goes back to a lot of the topics we discuss, significant emotional events from the past. If someone has been put down, someone has been insulted, someone has felt rejected, major events have happened in their life where they felt hurt. And then one can develop a pattern of protection, continually doing whatever it takes to protect oneself from feeling hurt again, from feeling rejected, from feeling ignored. And that can then lead to not forming associations and relationships in the first place. Number two, not opening oneself up to other people, right? Because what if I'm laughed at? What if I'm, insulted? What if I'm judged? Now, these are real things. And then one could have had severe negative emotions and past events. And so they could be looking at the world through that lens. So some of the signs of loneliness is not just that a person may not be showing up in groups, like you said earlier. A person may very well show up in group settings, in work settings, in social settings, but they may be less open. So that's one sign. They're only speaking when spoken to. They're kind of saying in a safe area, even within a group setting where they are not, you know, approached. um, they may not speak. Someone who doesn't communicate is or has reservations communicating about what's going on in their life. And now it doesn't mean they have to spill out everything, but in general, um, if this kind of person, if you ask them how they're doing, they typically will deflect it, or they don't feel they need to talk about anything really. That you may not hear from them for long periods of time. um, one of the worst, I've sort of looked into this. One of the worst forms of loneliness is when you are lonely, feeling so lonely inside with people around you. I feel that's one of the worst forms of loneliness, because I mean it's like a double whammy. It's like you've got people, but then why are you lonely, right? So um loneliness has so many layers, but like you said, it's so huge right now, and it's not being talked about. Um people are craving communities. People are craving the opportunity to show more sides of them, but they don't know how to. And now with artificial intelligence, now with us being able to do a lot of things without dealing with people, I think it'll be interesting how it all goes.
I want to touch on something that you just mentioned, which is that there's a deep need for connection. I think just about any person, if they're being honest, will say that there's a deep need for connection. And yet, we don't connect. We're not connecting on that deeper level. It might be superficial connections. what's keeping people from making those connections that they really, really want, and yet they continually either push them away or avoid them?
Through my work with a lot of people, one of the things that comes up a lot, not just for women, for men as well, is safety. So let's break down what safety is. Safety is not just physical safety of not being harmed by somebody physically. Um, Safety is a deep rooted need, and people want to feel safe. And in the modern context, safety is not being, you know, ill treated, not being insulted, not being rejected, not being ignored, not being, there's this saying: if you never want to be criticized, say nothing, be nothing, do nothing. Right? It's similar to that. I think a lot of people have put so many barriers in place. Sure, this, it is possible that people may say things to you that you don't like, or that may make you feel low about yourself. But again, it's what we always say. You it's because of what you've experienced in the past. It's so important to clean up the past, so important to let go of negative emotions on significant events from the past, because otherwise we have a distorted view of the world. So I think that's what it really is. People want to connect, but what would happen? Here's a question that's running in people's mind: what would happen if I open up? What would happen if I show myself? What would happen if I say something that I later regret? And one of the things that I hear from our students a lot, in fact, a lot, tremendous lot, is when people reveal in different contexts that um, they have a fear of speaking up. People have a tremendous fear of just opening their mouth. One of the things that we've discovered is one of the deepest fears people have is the fear of not being smart enough. This is
Mhm.
rampant across society because of the way we've set things up through school and everything. And if people feel they may not come across as smart enough, people are not going to speak. If they won't speak, they're not going to form connections. Communications is the first channel to connection. If they don't connect, if they don't have CP, then there's the trust issue. If you don't speak, if you don't share, if you don't communicate, I believe you are less trusted.
Mhm.
How can other people connect with you? All goes back to what we experienced through that one portion of our life to the age of 18. And then the second biggest area that could be problematic is through family and then marriage. These three areas, unsuccessful marriage, these three areas can leave a person heavily scarred. And the energy cube is full of stuff from the past. And when there is absolutely no denying that every single person, whether they're an introvert or extrovert, it doesn't matter. That's just a behavior. Wants, needs, and likes connection with other human beings. It's how we are designed.
You talk about people carrying significant emotional events, and it stays stored within you. And it not just affects your view of the world, but your view of yourself as well. Is that part of what's contributing to loneliness? Is that if I believe something about myself, I'm afraid to speak out because I'm afraid of exposing that. And what will
Mhm.
people think when they realize the thing that I don't like about myself? Does that contribute to it as well?
Yeah. The deep fear is a fear of not being liked.
Hmm.
We are designed through our schooling system to go out and get liked. It's all subconscious. If you pass or fail, A or a B, you do this or either it's right or it's wrong. Then there could be religious things as well. Um, so I think the fear of not being liked is tremendously high. And we always say to people, and I look, this is easy for me to say, I get it, but when you start doing the work on yourself, when you start letting go of associations of previous events, you genuinely have an opportunity to be okay not being liked.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying go out intentionally and look for opportunities to not be liked. Or maybe I am. Or maybe I am. Maybe how you build that muscle is through exposing yourself through circumstances where may not be super likable, but you may grow that muscle of being okay with it. Like, how can you be likable for everything? That's eventually that's what leads to people pleasing. I read somewhere that 25% of people will really, really, that you come across in your life will really, really, really like you. Like, they just instant rapport. There's a warm, fuzzy feeling. There's care, all of that. 25% of people um, kind of may not super like you, but they'll be okay with you. There is not a charge, negative or positive. 25% of people will not like you. They just won't like you. There's all sorts of subconscious phenomena. And I know it may not be exact 25%, but there's a point being made. And there's 25% of people who are actually going to dislike you. I mean, super dislike you. Even though you may have everything supposedly right with you, you cannot control subconscious phenomena. You cannot control unconscious rapport. You cannot control the way you look, the way you sound, the way you dress, the way you behave. You may think it's appropriate behavior, but they may still not like you. I mean, they will not like you. 25. Now imagine what happens when you hear. For those who are listening, imagine what happens when you listen to this. That means a whopping 50% of people in your life are pretty much not going to like you. You already know that in advance, right? And out of the remaining 50%, 25, 2.5 people out of 10 people you meet are going to super like you. You already know that. There is this idea that I would talk about, the word nice. Let's talk about the word nice, right? We grew up with this word, nice boy, nice girl. What a nice person. What a nice, sure. And we develop an idea of what nice means. And if you really look below it, nice means trouble free. Again, we can explore what trouble means. Nice means uh, doing the right thing.
Hmm.
Nice can mean polite. Nice can also mean someone who doesn't speak up,
Hmm.
just does. Now think about the implication of this word. I think it's actually not very nice for you to not show who you are. So nice is subjective, right? Nice is subjective. When did we decide that nice means only one thing? If you're looking after your interests and sometimes you have to, not contact other people for some days because you have a goal you're pursuing, or, you maybe are not spending time going out, coffees and whatever else, it could be seen as not very nice, but is it or is it not? Because is it nicer that you are being true to yourself, doing what you said you would do, being disciplined, all of that sort of stuff. So you see a lot of this indoctrination that happens through words. When we speak a lot about linguistics, these ideas that come through words, the word spelling, it's really just casting of spells. Words are spells. So what are the words we are carrying? What are the meanings we are carrying? And how is that impacting our current situation in life? And how much of our loneliness is self-inflicted because of not just inability, but lack of desire or unwillingness, if you will, to feel hurt at any instance. Because you're going to get hurt anyway. You're going to feel hurt. Hurt is a feeling. You're going to feel. You could even feel hurt by viewing something happening, on social media. So I think what is less known is that doesn't mean you need a lot of people, but not feeling lonely is extremely healthy.
It feels as though part of it is for those people who are secure in the truth of who they are. They're very secure in who they are. Whether someone likes them or not is not the most relevant part of because people are going to, as you say, people are going to like you. Even people that you love are going to like you and not like you some days.
Pretty much.
People who are not secure in who they are, the truth of who they are, now they rely on other people to tell them who they are.
Yes.
And now I'm going to be very lonely if I'm not getting the right responses every day, because inside of me, I don't have those responses to give to myself.
Yeah.
I imagine that plays a big role as well, which is why you continually say the work has to be done on yourself first, because you also can't go out and change the entire world to like you. It can't be done.
Oh yeah. We must do whatever it takes You call it insecurity. Another way of saying is that we must develop a likeness for ourselves, right? Not egotistical way, but we must continually focus. There's always things we've done wrong. There's always reasons. I said to you, there was a class once. I said a whole group of people. We were doing a process of forgiveness of others, but that includes forgiveness of self. And I said, how many of you have not forgiven yourself? 80% of the hands went up in the class.
Yeah.
80%. That's representative of society. Imagine who most people what they're walking around carrying. Then I asked, this is actually what blew my mind. Out of the 80% of hands that were up, how many of you are not willing to forgive yourself? Half the hands stayed up.
Wow.
We, it goes back to, I mean, you to build security inside, to build strength inside, to build acceptance inside. It's a series of steps to take, and it's not that hard. There's a series of steps to take. It involves creating new meanings for past events. It involves letting go and forgiving. It involves evaluating certain decisions and certain beliefs and convictions you made about yourself, about others, and about life and possibilities. And it involves focusing towards the future. One of the best definitions like of forgiving is for giving up the hope that the past would be any different.
Hmm.
This is critical because this has a direct connection to loneliness or lack thereof.
You work a lot with clients who maybe on the surface very high achieving,
Mm.
successful, seem to have everything that you could possibly want, and yet we find that high achievers are experiencing loneliness maybe more than any other group. What is it about being successful that maybe it doesn't necessarily contribute to loneliness, but it's difficult to talk about or do something about because on the surface you seem to have everything going for you?
Yeah, great question, Jim. There's a good and a bad to that. So one school of thought is, and it's quite true that as you get, what helps you get genuine success is discipline, is consistency, is continual growth, right? Continual study and growth or practice, whatever that is field is. And in doing so, one has to let go of certain things, including certain relationships, certain other types of commitments, and so that can lead to a person spending more time alone. So that's one side of it, and that kind of loneliness is not problematic to the person because they have goal focused. This sort of person is generally also involved in lifting other people, whether in a work context, life context, and they don't actually feel the loneliness, although they may look lonely from the outside. Because you may have heard of that, it's lonelier at the top.
Hmm.
But what's not said is for a lot of people, it's quite okay. Because in order to get that level of success and fulfillment, they have enough inner love for themselves, enough respect for themselves, enough expect. Hey, that's a guarantee, right?
Yeah.
Then there is the other side where we talk about the imposter syndrome. I noticed, I read somewhere there's nearly 70% of CEOs feel like an imposter.
Hmm.
Now it's not only about work. Someone could be successful in so many other ways. Now it depends on how they got to success or what's called success. If they got there by producing, and which by the way some things require that, by maintaining a certain image, then you have to continually keep that mask on. And that would be a tremendously disturbing kind of loneliness, because now you have to maintain what you've said, what you've done, and opening up or being too vulnerable, for example, vulnerable, open, being exposing your true side could lead to potential, or at least in a perceived way, potential loss of what you've gained and earned. And that could keep people, fortunately for me, in our kind of work, not only I encourage people to be able to accept and work with all sides of themselves. It's really about accepting all sides of you. Fortunately for me, like, I've made sure we've created a setting, a business, a environment, a you know a, well, I should think of another word. um, I'll use setting, where it allows me to not only accept but show all sides of me, and that was important to me. That's the kind of success that I've always wanted, because I've had the kind of success which was based on maintaining an image. To be honest with you, I've had that, and it hurt. After a while, it was like a pain in the chest.
Hmm.
Because here's the thing: if you cannot be you, and I say that with caution, there are certain sides of you that they are not for everybody. But if you can't be you, you cannot truly like you, and if you cannot like you, it's going to show up in different forms of unease or dis-ease, pun intended.
I want to turn just slightly to a different group. I mean, we could talk about any different group here, but there was one that you mentioned very early in our talk, and it's people within either a very close personal relationship or marriage, feeling lonely within a marriage to the point that, in whether these are related or not, but again, we see statistics 68% of men under 30 are no longer, they're not married, they're not even pursuing relationships. Can you talk a little bit about loneliness as it exists within a marriage? You say part of it is safety and trust, and maybe what a couple can do to begin navigating that loneliness.
Yeah, loneliness can certainly occur inside of an intimate relationship, and I've heard of that. I've seen it many times, and um, I think it goes back to communication. It goes back to honesty. Now, if a couple is well into their marriage, many many years, it's more than likely that events occur within the marriage. It's pretty normal when you're spending 24/7 with a person. Things are going to go wrong.
Oh.
If a couple truly wants to not feel lonely in their marriage and they have that intention, it must come from both sides, and it must lead to a communication about what has happened in the past, and how do we move on from that. That's the first part. You carrying this all the time, is that, how strong is that memory and the emotion attached to it? So it's a matter of making that intention, and I would say make going to the point of making the relationship conditional on open and honest communication, and having that agreement in advance that if I reveal this to you, if I say this to you, if I tell it's about me, can we have almost like an amnesty, because our intention is to move forward, and we have an amnesty that you will allow me to be vulnerable, allow me to and not have certain meanings without consulting me on that. So I think it requires very very power. I think marriages, or an intimate relationship for that matter, is highly dependent, and it saddens me that how hard it is in some relationships to be truly honest, and it just becomes a relationship of convenience, because it's like the whole thing you say, too big to fail. When organizations went down in GFC, that some banks were too big to fail. So what do? Even though it's the wrong thing to do, you keep them going. And I think that aspect might show up a lot in a marriage. The nature of the relationship, there could be mortgage involved, there could be families involved, there could be children involved, there could be so much involved reputationally, and that without here's what I would say: if someone feels lonely in the marriage and they're still in the marriage, it is likely to be, again, to avoid all the cleanup that
Hmm.
comes with leaving the relationship. So then the only option is total and utter honesty, and that intention of creating a new version of the relationship, which is impossible without that agreement and that intention. It's complex, and it's 100% doable, because you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person. I think the reward is so high. I know in my own marriage, we had different points where we arrived at, and we thought we are being 100% honest, but we realized there is more we can show, more we can reveal, more we can be open about. And I've been married for 21 years, and I can tell you, I don't think we have ever been as open, as honest, and as vulnerable, and as available to each other than ever. And I think it's not like it just happened. We intended and we worked at it, and I think that is the greatest gift in my life.
There's a, I think a lot of people are afraid of that kind of honesty and vulnerability, but there's a great freedom to it too, that you can be truly yourself.
Yeah, it's a great freedom. Imagine not being able to be yourself with your partner. I'm sorry to say this, but um, that's like slow death.
I feel like that loneliness itself is a very slow death as well.
And
And
sometimes you have to be okay losing certain things in life. That, it's like we say, you always have to pay the price. You always have to be willing to, you have to choose your hard. See, marriage is hard, not being married is hard. Working out is hard, not working out is harder. Not staying honest, oh, sorry, being honest with each other and being okay with showing each other your full selves and being vulnerable can be hard, but not doing it can be super hard in the long term for what it'll do. So choose your hard, choose the price you're willing to pay. Sometimes you have to unravel your life. You have to probably, it'll have an impact on career. It could have an impact on many different things. But look, what's the reward on offer? I don't think there is anything more spectacular than an intimate relationship that is built on vulnerability, truth, honesty, and acceptance of all parts of each other. It sounds like an ideal, but it's not. You already, the ideal is that you committed to one person. You already done it.
there are people I know that are listening, and whether they're in a relationship, they're high achievers, they're whatever group they fall into, they're experiencing loneliness today. They've been experiencing loneliness and they want some way to begin to climb out of this. What are some things, maybe what's one shift that someone can think about making today that can help?
Right. So first is acceptance. I think first is accept, that you are having feelings of loneliness. Very important to not cover that up. Number two is look at your current list of connections, your friends, family, in work, whatever it is, and look at the list of people and see who has made you feel heard and understood, who has made you feel, that you can be you. There's nothing more spectacular than having people around you that you can be you. They are the people. Do you know that it's said the people we most like being around is where we don't even realize it, but we can be ourselves. They are the best kind of people, right? So look at, as you listen to this, who is in your life. I'm sure you've had them. Go out of the way, even if it's uncomfortable. Reconnect with them. Not we sometimes we think it's going to come across as needy. So what? So what? Someone's got to initiate it, right? Do something for them. Find ways of connecting with them, meeting with them, and not everything has to be deep and meaningful, but being yourself, all sides of yourself, funny, crazy, whatever it is. So first look at that, and if they have been, maybe for some reason you have, because of the potential fear of not feeling heard or understood, not or feeling rejected, you may have at some point made a decision. Maybe you had another incident that happened in your life, and you know stopped associating with a lot of people, even those who made you feel okay. So I would look through that. If you have some traumatic experiences from the past in work, in family, whatever, then you must get on and do the work. There are ways to do it. I mean, our school is just an expert at that. There are so many ways. Get in touch with neuromastersacademy.com. Find out how you can do that, and then so that'll allow you to not have the weight of the past, right? Then the third thing I would do is get into communities. There are so many ways to get into communities, and be selective about it. But when you're thinking of a community, when you're thinking of a group, when you're thinking about a group of people, think about what potential values they may have. Consider that. So what is a group of people who are, for example, working on themselves? What are the qualities? They have qualities of self improvement. They have qualities of wanting to be better. They have qualities of, probably more than likely, they have probably got qualities, values of support, right? And so those are the sort of communities that can help a lot of people. I mean, we have a huge community of thousands of people, and you should see. I mean, we got doctors, engineers, real estate people. We got moms, dads, grandparents. We've got people who are doing technical work, people who are healers. I mean, it is just it's so powerful. People say they are no good people. I mean, you ought to come have a look. I mean, you'll be blown away. It's almost like and one of the things we teach people is to have boundaries and then enforce them. Gotta. The amount of people that tell me, oh, what's boundaries? No, boundaries doesn't mean that you're rude to other people. Boundaries are things that you accept and you don't accept, and there are different ways of communicating it. So that's what I would say to people. It's really a 3-4 step process. Think about the benefits. What would happen if you didn't feel lonely? You're gonna have a different frequency, different vibe. You're gonna run into more opportunities. You're gonna have a richer experience of life. You're gonna be, and sure, at some point, people may let you down. That's just called life. You have to build yourself enough to be able to move on from those things, to be able. There's so many things nowadays one can attend that are not just online. That are not just online, right? Where I would recommend get into programs and courses or environments where part of their work involves you working with other people. We do that, and we see lifelong friendships forming over and over again, and it's so spectacular. So there are plenty of ways you can get there, and but people stay away from that either, that as well, because oh, I have to be seen. So you gotta have at some point in life, one of the deep rooted needs of a human being is to be heard, understood, and to be seen. Let's stop bullshitting, even if you're an introvert.
You can almost feel, just thinking about the experience of loneliness, how tight you feel, that anxiety, fear, sadness. You feel very small, closed off.
Yeah.
Then to think of being your authentic self with people that accept that, you can almost take a breath. They feel so
Oh, you
light,
can actually
free.
breathe.
Oh man,
You can
it's
actually
such a
breathe.
lovely feeling.
It
Can you,
is.
maybe we can end this talk? Maybe you could talk about someone that you worked with who has gone from feeling really deep loneliness and was able to take a breath afterward.
A couple comes to mind. Now, they're a couple, right? And they're nearly at, I mean, they have grandkids, and this couple have worked, had careers, really good careers over 25, 30 years. When they came to us, they will came to work on themselves and get a better experience of life, because they have some things that gone wrong in their life. They have, some problems with their son, grown up son. But in general, they also reveal that they really don't meet anybody. They don't really have a social. They haven't really done that for a very, very, very long time. Now, there would have been tons of different reasons. I think that's why they came to work with us, because they've had. But what I noticed was through the journey, they have formed so, and they look the happiest when they're in groups. And interestingly, they have become such solid members of our community, that because that feeling of being connected has meant so much to them, because they live large portion of their life without doing that at all. This is a couple, right? Although they've got each other, everybody wants other connections too. And now they have become so important in our community. They actually help a lot of people.
Mhm.
They just help so many people. Plus, they've made friends. Plus, they have gone out and had the grandparents, and they have launched their own business. Because think of how good we feel when we have people supporting us, when they have people who connect with us, who see us, who look us up, who you actually have a drive to do something more meaningful in life. This is the magic of this. They are fabulous, and they one of the things that initially took me by surprise, but they did mention they just spend a large majority of their life not spending time with anyone but themselves,
Hmm.
but each other, which is still better than nothing. But of course, there was a deep need for, I could see the connecting with other people, and to turn around, and these sort of people, they just keep supporting so many other people now, and others look up to them, and so it's just a beautiful vortex they've gone and created.
That's a beautiful story, and I think a good place to end our talk today, Reg. I want to thank you for joining us today. And if people want to learn more, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, like I said earlier, I think if this is an issue plaguing you, you must not wait. Must not wait. if you, whether it's Neuromasters or anyone else, you must get in touch with someone who has. I think that's a great way to get into it, is to go into certain programs where people are already working on themselves. So you'll feel, not odd. You'll feel. Number two, they should have some through their programs. They should be exposure to a lot of people. Number three is working where they, allow you to work with as part of the learning and change. I mean, that's a very smart thing to do. You actually fall into communities that way, and it's a really. And sometimes you can't always revive those relationships within families. It can be hard. Maybe you've had a divorce, maybe you've had heartache, maybe you had, but you got to start somewhere, and be very selective about the groups you start with, so that you are maximizing the chances that you will form connections. That's what I would do.
Excellent.
Neuromasters is one place, neuromasters.com, and have a chat with one of our team, and find out everything you want to find out to figure out whether this kind of thing is right for you.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. And for those of you listening, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you again next time.
Great pleasure. Fabulous topic. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Neuromasters show. I'm Reg Malhotra, reminding you that your trauma is seen, your transformation is possible, and your breakthrough is right around the corner. If you found today's episode valuable, you can visit our website for many more resources, to register for a live breakthrough experience, and to continue your journey of reclaiming your full self.